Keep evolving, keep growing. That's a mission statement from New York Giants linebacker Kayvon Thibodeaux, and we'll dive into what that means, his NFL career so far, his investments, all of that and more right now. Hello everyone, it's Jabbar Young here at the NASDAQ market site, and I'm with New York Giants linebacker Kayvon Thibodeaux. Man, thank you so much for joining me in this Black History Month. We closing it out, and you fresh off of a plane from Europe, looking good, man. How's everything?
Man, I'm happy to be here, man. Yeah, thank you for having me. But life's been good, man. It's the off season, so just getting ready for this next season and doing everything off the field I can.
Yeah. What is it like in the off season? Like, what does a player do after the season's over? Right. Obviously, the disappointment of not making the playoffs and contending for a Super Bowl. What's the first thing you do once the interviews are complete and you're just free?
You got to get away. That's like for me, I got to decompress. I probably took about 2-3 weeks off. Just did nothing. Like you said, I just came back from vacation. So after the Super Bowl is over, you still take about 3 or 4 weeks, knowing that a football season is about 6 months. Mm-hmm. So it's like even off season then is another 4 months, 3 months of training. So you got to take about 1 or 2 months off to let your body recover. So first is getting away, kind of resetting. Then coming back and making sure that your body's right, your mental's right, and starting to kind of progress back into that training regimen.
Yeah. Now, did you watch the Super Bowl, and if so, what did you think of the Usher concert?
You gotta watch the Super Bowl. Obviously, it hurts not being there, but if you're a student of the game, a fan of the game, you gotta watch it. And for me, seeing Usher up there, that was amazing. Yeah. The whole ensemble was. It was dope.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So much to get into, but right fast before we move ahead, again, it's Black History Month, and I always ask people around this time, give me your Black History Month figure, right? Maybe somebody that, not a notable name. Everybody says their parents, and I do respect that part of it, but somebody that maybe they don't think about when you ask that question top of mind. So a Black History Month figure as we close out the month.
Honestly, I would say Lebron.
Wow.
And that's he's super current. Obviously, he's still in the league today, and he's still with us. So you talk about being a historical figure, but then also, for me, when I look at Black history, I talk about Black future, and it's about, not necessarily, you understand who you were to guide who you're going to be. Yeah. So for me, LeBron has kind of set that precedent for me being an athlete and for a lot of athletes to come after him on how to do it, how to respect the game, how to respect yourself, your family, and how to really stand up as, a Black man in America.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. LeBron doesn't get enough credit, man. I think he gets a lot of hate because people didn't like the decision.
It's a sport.
But absolutely, it's a sport. But outside of that, man, you got to respect what the brother has done. So interesting you said that. What's it like, man, to go from, and not to say that it happened overnight, but what's it like to go from maybe not having a lot of money, right, to a millionaire with the stroke of a pen? Because you get drafted, and I'm sure everybody's cut, but then when that bank account, when you see that bank account and it's all that guaranteed money gets inserted, what is that feeling and what's your process?
Man, first, obviously you got to give credit to God because you're a chosen few. You talk about people who are in this position or have this, power, as you say. But then it also, in reality, it makes you feel smaller, right? Because you sit there and say, like, a stroke of a pen, like, there are people who make millionaires. You know what I'm saying? So you talk about, how small you are in the grand scheme of, finances. It's like, it creates more hunger. Yeah. So for me, it gave me a great sigh of relief knowing that, okay, my family is okay, but then it also gave me another chip on my shoulder knowing that I have more to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Listen, I have been trying to set this discussion up with you for a while, right? We had a mutual friend. He was going at me because your involvement in startup leagues. Definitely want to find out what's so intriguing about that. And so as we enter your portfolio, let's start it off, right? Here's the National Thoroughbred League, right? Our chief content officer, Randall Lane, is an investor. In full disclosure, we have to say that. But there's a new startup horsing racing league. The U.S. Masters, the T10 Cricket League, right? You're invested in the New York Warriors franchise. What stands out about startup leagues? Like, because sometimes you put your money into, why am I doing this? But because they have a chance of failing so high. But what stands out about them?
Well, first, I think it's about who you align yourself with. When you talk about investing, period, it's about, like I told you, I'm a small fish in a big ocean of investors and people that are kind of, that have a vision for the future. So for me, I like to align myself with the right people who are actual, bigger stakeholders in these investments. And then when you talk about sports, it's about, understanding the storytelling. For me, I feel like America is big on storytelling, and one reason that our sports that we do have become so big is because of the stories that they've been able to generate behind it. And when you talk about, the T10, you talk about horse racing, those were, well, separately first, horse racing is something that, that's one of America's sports, and then it also can, European and different countries. But when you talk about, the love of the animals, the love of the sport, and the care for the animals, it's taken a different step when it talks about the storytelling that goes into it. So I think, it being a startup is great because I'm a part of that first kind of engine that's pushing it, when you talk about the storytelling behind it. But yeah, just also the inclusivity of it. There are not too many owners in anything that look like me or look like us. So you talk about being able to be at that cap table and now be able to bring more people with me, set an example of things, that you can do and things that are possible.
Yeah, and obviously, again, we don't look enough at horse racing, right?
Exactly.
We not look enough at cricket, and cricket is a global sport. It's growing in the U.S. big time, and you're in this new league. They're taking the sport, which can take days, into 90 minutes, right? When somebody's proposing that business proposal to you, right, and you got cricket, right, what are you thinking, and what prevented you from saying no way?
Well, first, it's about the people, right? The people who are presenting and starting up the league, and how passionate are they? There are a lot of people who have ideas of things, but they're not in that stage of their career, right? And I say that to say, like, if they just had a kid or family or baby or whatever, they might not have that same hunger because they have other things to focus on versus some people who, are ready to dive in on the things that they're starting. So I think that's the first step. And the second thing is about the globalness, right?
Yeah.
For me, being in America, I mean, you love the opportunities, but I feel like we've become so kind of tunnel vision and very specific when we talk about the range, right, that we're in. I think that even like the NFL is an example that now we're bridging out and focusing on bridging out to different countries because you talk about the power of the people, right? So obviously the cricket league is one of the biggest sports in the league, or in the world, like you said. And now with it coming to America, I think what it hasn't had is the storytelling, and that's what's going to captivate us and the people. So me being able to bring that side of journalism, advertising that I, majored in college, and then also being in the league and being a part of big brands and big companies that do this on a daily, I've got a great understanding of, and not the best, but I have a good understanding of what it'll take to storytell the right way and to get those same people that following and that kind of love of the sport here.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you got a tech side, right? As your PR, she just told me you're status pro, right? I love what those brothers are doing, hawking those guys, inside of the Meta, the universe that you're in, right? The Oculus. I played it while I was there. Yeah. What stood out? Because listen, LeBron and Drake, now you have investor and partners now. I know that's why you said LeBron at the top. He's also an investor partner of yours. But what stood out about status pro?
Status pro, like I said, first, it's about the people. Yeah. Those guys are really hungry. They're doing great things. And then when you talk about the future, those are people who obviously see where things are going. And even for me, I'm a younger guy, so I understand that, the computer is not going away, right? And it's just going to keep advancing. And now when you think about why are sports so great, right? Sports are different from music. They're different from most other things because a guy like LeBron, there's no one else in the world that can do what he does. So you talk about different athletes in different sports and why they're so great. You talk about the Superbowl. These are people who have the ability that the world can't emulate, right? So when you talk about Oculus and you talk about Pro Air, you talk about what's to come, now they actually have a chance to kind of see in the vision. I don't know if you ever seen that old school Michael Vick commercial where it was like the Michael Vick experience where it was I don't know how long ago it was, maybe in the early 2000s, but it was a view into the Oculus, into seeing what a Michael Vick, a Patrick Mahomes, a Lamar Jackson, to see what they see. And now you can get a taste. Obviously, it'll never be the real thing, but now you can kind of get more of an understanding and create a love for that and be in there. Now, it being a game, obviously, it makes it that much more fun.
Yeah. Listen, speaking of game, man, as we're here at the NASDAQ market site again with Kayvon Thibodeaux, New York Giants linebacker. Take me back into your past, man. You grew up in South Los Angeles, right? Always want to ask people, what was it like in that particular time when you were growing up? What did you see? What did you want to be?
For me, it wasn't a lot of examples. There are a lot of people who are from LA that become successful, but they're almost not tangible. When you talk about the biggest names, that come to mind, there's not a lot of heavy presence in the city. So when you talk about having mentors and having things like that. I had them on a local level when you talk about uncles, coaches, and people who saw great things in me, who poured into me, but I didn't have them on a grand level where you talk about, for example, Ice Cubes or the Kendrick Lamars or the people. Like it takes a village, right, to raise kids. And you talk about being in the inner city is so big that it almost gets looked over, right? You almost assume that, they'll be all right, talking about in the grand scheme of things. So for me, it was just understanding that I had to dedicate myself. I had to really apply myself and what I wanted to be. And I think the greatest thing for me was being able to see, a very diverse community. When you talk about the inner city, yes, it's all black, but just across, the train tracks or just across the main street is a whole different society. So it's like when you're able to get a taste of something different, you kind of get that travel bug. And now, like even now how we talked about, being able to travel the world, like I'm just hungry for experiences and knowledge, and that was planted in me just by being able to go to the beach or go to Beverly Hills or go, to different places, even though, being in the kind of sometimes overpassed hub of Los Angeles.
Yeah. Did you always want to be a football player? Like, was that from the start?
Man, I didn't even watch football growing up, if I'm being honest. The first
What'd you watch?
Cartoons, you talk about, and that's another thing, you talk about what we spend our time doing. I was more idle. I was a kid, I went to school, I played football, and when I got home, I just played video games and watched cartoons, and you start to see the seed didn't get planted about the NFL until I was a recruit and I was a guy who, had the potential, right? People would say it, but I didn't really hone it. The sport used to be boring to me. And I know for a lot of younger kids or a lot of, people who aren't invested in the sport, they look at it because there's so many things going on, right? So the first game I watched was, Ray Lewis and when they took on the 49ers in the Superbowl and the lights went out. Yeah. That was kind of my first game sitting, watching, and I became a fan of Ray Lewis, even though that was the end of his career. But you talk about, the storytelling, right? It wasn't until I started understanding the stories of the game that made me dive into it, and then obviously being a recruit and having to watch it to understand the different college or the different, pro team I would eventually end up on.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue because we dig into your career a little bit, right? So you go from South Los Angeles, right? You go up to Portland, Oregon, University of Oregon. Yeah. I love Portland because I used to live there covering the Blazers. So Fire and the Mountain Wings, I was there all the time, man. Yeah. Great place. So you go from there and then you get drafted, right? Number 5 overall, New York Giants. Here you are, 4 sacks your rookie season, right? And then you go from 4 to 11.5 sacks, right? And I'm looking at this film, I'm watching people break down, and what I respect about you is you're taking your craft seriously, right? You're studying film. I'm looking at Carl Banks, a Giants legend, breaking down the things that you're doing, getting off blocks, recovering better, right? Staying dedicated to the end. Your defensive coordinator say you're the perfect finisher, right? Who are you studying in between last year and this year that allowed you to go from 4 to 11.5 sacks?
So it's funny, I think what's hard about sports and results is that it's easy to point the finger on what kind of bred that result, right? For me, people have been asking me what was the jump, what was the change, what was the big thing that ignited this? And I've been doing the same thing for the past 5 years, right? So when you talk about, it's been evolving, but when you talk about the discipline, when you talk about the honing in on your craft, when you talk about getting guys so who was I studying? When I was in college, I was studying Von Miller. Then it just so happened that I got to talk to him and meet him and get more tips, but from the Von Millers to the DeMarcus Wares to the Aaron Donalds, then, now you've segued, now I'm in the league and I'm meeting people, and now it's like, okay, now I can talk to Max Crosby, now I can get, Khalil Mack, now I can, talk to Dexter Lawrence, my teammates, and Leonard Williams, and, the list can go on, but I think it's easy to overlook, and it's the same thing as getting drafted, where it's like, you get drafted and it's like, oh, it's just overnight success. It's like, no, most athletes that get drafted have been working this hard for the past decade. So now being here, I got 11 sacks, but those same things that I was practicing or working on, or the tools that I was sharpening, I've always been sharpening them, right? It's just so the preparation met the timing and met the opportunity, and I was able to make more plays. One thing I do feel like I was able to advance in is understanding how to play cohesively. When you talk about football, and more specifically, is a sport full of individuals, and the only way to win a game is to get all those individuals, on one accord. So when I looked at, how I was rushing the passer or how I was defeating blocks or how I was, approaching each game, it was from an individualistic standpoint where I needed to make the plays that were meant for me, right? Not saying that I wasn't for the team, but saying that I didn't understand how to work cohesively with a Dexter Lawrence, one of the most generational talents in the NFL, or, Leonard Williams, who's another great vet, or even the other side, Azeez Ojulari, and, the list goes on. But once you start to learn how to work as a team, things start to, get better for the individual.
Absolutely. And one of those people, and listen, you said Von Miller's one of my favorite players. So, but Carl Banks, right, a Giants legend, Super Bowl champ, president of G3 Apparel Group, right, traded right here on the NASDAQ Stock Exchange, right. That's a $3.2 billion that they made in 2023, and Carl is the president of their sports division, which houses the Starter brand. Again, a Giants legend, and I know that before the Giants drafted you, you and Carl had to sit down, and he kind of explained and went and say, this is your guy. What did you learn from Carl between now and then, from the business side?
And I give a great, a big shout out to Carl, but it wasn't just Carl. You give Michael Strahan, you give Osi Umenyiora, you give a bunch of guys who I not only wanted to seek the information from, but who were more than welcoming when it came to, my draft process and what to do and what not to do. So, but when you talk about Carl, he's very wise, and you talk about his approach to things. He understands, the longevity of it. He understands what to focus on. So when I came in, obviously New York is the biggest media market. It's the biggest city in the world. So you talk about getting his information on how he was able, one, to dominate so long while keeping out the distractions, right? And then also the media, asking questions and kind of tearing you down, building you back up, as the season goes on. But just understand.
We do that? Media does that?
I'm not going to say you, but definitely, New York likes winners. And if you're not winning, they don't like you. That's the truth, and that's sports and all. So it definitely is great. Obviously it puts pressure on the players to make them great, which is amazing. But having him there, having other vets there to, kind of confide, not for me to confide in them and for them to kind of share some information, it's been great. And they've definitely helped me navigate and stay on that yellow brick road.
Yeah, going off the field for a minute, right, fast as we, wrap up here at the NASDAQ market site. Definitely don't want to leave out your Jream Foundation, right? Not D as Jream, J, right? Why J? What was that? Where's that coming from?
The play on J is Journey to Readiness and Enrichment through Academic Mentorship. So it's an acronym, and actually a father figure of mine who's now the president of the foundation, Antonio Patterson, his daughter's name is Dream. And I played for his foundation football program when I was younger, and he was my mentor growing up. His son is my best friend and right-hand man today. But when you talk about Dream, it started with a dream, and it started with me understanding my purpose. And football wasn't my purpose. That was my avenue, right? My purpose was to bring people together. And I realized that I brought people together with the dream to be great. You talk about being great, and it's whatever endeavor that the children set their minds to. But for me, it's about equipping them with the resources and then bringing mentors in so that they can understand that you can be more than what may be around you, right? It's about, getting the information, applying it, and then understanding that we use Dream as kind of the concierge between mentorship and menteeship. So you talk about having kids understand why they need mentors and having mentors kind of feel their presence and understand why it's so important that they continue to give back.
And you won in week 9 NFL PA Community MVP for that, and raised $120,000 right in a gala that the Giants as well as the team held in October, and partnered with Chase Bank in May 2023 to go back to Dorsey High School where you went to teach financial literacy. I asked Namdi Kasu this very question I asked you before we wrap up a little bit, and that is, what is the biggest thing that you've learned about financial literacy? He said that the ability that he didn't understand credit building very early, especially for kids. He got credit cards in his kids' name already, and they're not even six yet, right? And so what's the biggest thing you've learned as you started to get more into financial literacy and teaching it to kids?
Man, money is power. So when you start to understand that anything you spend your money on, you're dwindling your power, right? And then legacy, right? We're all here for legacy. We're all, working every day, working hard every day so that you can leave your legacy better than you found it. Talking about our parents, and we always give credit to our parents or the generations before us, but now when you talk about money, every decision you make is impacting your legacy, right? So understanding that as long as you make calculated decisions, you'll leave your legacy, better than you found it.
Yeah, I guess I was going to go buy some new shoes after this, but now you're talking me out of it, right? I got to just put that money in the bank.
Hey, just put it in the bank, sit on it, man.
Absolutely,
Compound interest.
Speaking of money, man, let me get your opinion right fast on a few things. Name, image, and likeness being the first of them, right? Is it hurting college football? There are a lot of kids out there that are benefiting from this, and the coaches are saying it's bad. I see both sides of it, especially the side when you come from nothing and you're starting to get this money rolling in. But there is Pandora's box that's been opened now. What do you think is doing to college football right now?
I think we have to first understand what is good and what is bad. Right? For me, I think it's good because now there's no more dictatorship, right? There's been a lot of guys who've been coerced into either staying in college or leaving college, or coerced to switching teams or not switching teams because the school has the control over the athlete because they don't have the resources or the power to leave or to make a change. And now you put the power and the resources into the young men and women's hands, and I think it's great. I think that they need guidance, right? I think that there needs to be something, educational piece implemented so that they understand the power of what they have and the power of now and the power of money. So that's why it's one of my biggest, endeavors to go back to Oregon and be a pillar, right, in the community with doing, different, whether it's the AFL, whether it's opening, different restaurants or whatever in the city, but then also giving back to the actual school and being there and being tangible so that these athletes can understand how to navigate this time, because it's really all about education and resources. And the more education you give them, the more powerful they'll be.
Yeah, you're very vocal as well, right? You're 22 years old and already you're saying you're a defensive leader, right? Maybe even a leader of the team. And maybe this is why that blew up so much, but apparently, you're on a podcast and you said you were mad that Saquon Barkley didn't necessarily get a deal the way that Daniel Jones, the quarterback of the Giants, got it. Take a deep breath, right? If you can elaborate on it a little bit, any feedback you've gotten from since then or anything or what is your message now about that? Because listen, the team's taking your voice seriously.
Yeah, exactly. I think my stance still stays the same when you talk about how we feel. I feel like in the position of running backs, they're used the most. And then this is the same as you talk about the power of the sport, the power of the league, the power of the teams, but they play a very dangerous position. And when you look at it from a stock perspective, I understand why you don't pay them as much as they should be paid. But when you talk about building character, building a team, building camaraderie, I think it's always important to see and to value the guys who bring the most value. Right. So that's kind of how I feel, and we're going to continue building as a team. He's obviously in a position to get a great contract, so hopefully everything works out for him. And we focus on winning, man. It's the 2024. Trying to go win a Super Bowl now.
Yeah, absolutely. Draft coming up, right? Put you on the spot. You're the New York Giants GM. Who do you go get?
Who do I go get? I have no clue, if I'm being honest. I have no clue.
Fresh off of a Europe trip.
But I'm telling you that if you're asking me would I rather be a GM or the top 5 pick, I'm going to just stay being the top 5 pick and go get sacks.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Two things, and let you get out of here. The first being U.S. presidential race is this year, right? You have a following. You have a platform. What are you looking at from an athlete's perspective? What do you tell your followers about what to look for when it comes down to the presidential race without choosing sides?
Well, if I'm being honest, I think that's kind of the smoke alarm. And I say that because we need to focus more local and things that are more tangible to us, and saying that like we need to see who's in office in our communities, in our
governors, mayors, absolutely.
Oh yeah, governors, mayors, the whole from top to bottom. And then I think in the Black community, it is Black History Month, so I think it is fair to address that we are a part of the U.S. system. Right? So it's like we've, the older generations have always said like, oh, politics, that doesn't matter to me. Oh, that doesn't matter to me. Well, it's like if you're going to continue to live in America, it might as well matter.
Absolutely.
Everything that has to do with your community is through politics. So it's like we have to start educating ourselves. We have to start really wanting the information and seeking the information and collaborating, have these talks. Like, I don't know, my first talk about a presidential election wasn't until I was 18, 19. And it's like, why is that? It's because it's not in the household. And I think the sooner we start to educate our kids and our younger adults on the importance of it, the better we'll be as far as representation, as far as getting things done that we feel need to get done.
Absolutely. Get you out of here on this, man. Good to great, right? Forbes BLK, we always love this question. I would love to get your book advice, but I'm going to get you that next time, right? What is the difference between a good linebacker and a great one?
Oh man, a great linebacker finishes plays. They make big time plays when the game matters. So when you talk about being good and being great, I think great is a lifestyle and good is a job. You know, you can be good at your job, but to be great, you got to make it a lifestyle. So that's one thing I definitely learned, you know, from first season, second season, that the people who are at the top, they've made it their lifestyle, and there's nothing else that can get them off that yellow brick road.
Yeah, studying the game, man, studying the craft. The greats have done it. Kobe, LeBron, Jordan, all of them, right? Studying tape from start to finish. That's what makes you great. Kayvon Thibodeaux, my brother, thank you so much for the time, man. Look forward to continuing these conversations because, listen, your trajectory says you're going to get a lot of money. And your trajectory says that you're going to get a lot of investment opportunities coming up. You're already partners with LeBron and Drake and them. So congratulations on the success, man, and look forward to taking this business conversation deeper.